in any way impassioned by the dealings between the two parties, because one to say it was made between the UDA party and the ODM party. We know this government is run on the basis of a coalition government, coalition systems. So these cutting corners that we see, the people that actually got into this understanding, we were trying to bend corners around the Kenyan citizenry, trying to escape the position that would put them in a place where the MPs of the UDA that were loyal to the former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua would have to resign from parliament, and the numbers of the majority would decrease, would happen. All these things would show that this government is trying to circumvent its situation around a tight corner. But just to say, I mean, we had a nice discussion about the Haiti mission, and I want to speak to you just in a minute, because it's something that we need not forget very fast. We should not have the short-term memory of a goldfish. In last year, just around the Gen Z protest, we had the first consignment. 200 police officers were deployed to a strife-torn continental mission in the Haiti, whereby everyone all over the world was wondering, what is Kenya up to? The UN Security Council, of course, endorsed that mission and believed that, yes, Kenya will go to, of course, provide the service. But the United Nations particularly has refused, up to now, is adamant to service that financing. And we are looking at Kenya bearing the brunt of that. 2.1 trillion was funded in the first supplementary one estimate of last year to meet this challenge. And right now, as we talk, the government has been adamant to even send more 600 police officers to Haiti. I mean, some of us who know really what happens in the military corridors will tell you that the numbers that are reported about the deaths and all this usually sometimes are underreported. I can tell you for real, many people have tried Haiti, and Haiti is a deathbed of many people. So to come and I'm not a prophet of doom, but I do believe that the situation is actually worse on ground. Now, 2 billion so far in this budgetary planning has been added to make the 4.5 billion in Haiti that we see right now. Just to make it clear, the new budgetary estimate for the military is about 5 billion. How can Haiti and the defense ministry actually bear in power in terms of budgetary estimates? It does not make sense. HIV, AIDS, TB, all these drugs that we need have been budgeted for about 11 billion for a whole year. How clearly do you make it a point that a non-priority interest, which like Haiti, would cost about half of the amount that we need for health for these drugs in Kenya? Just yesterday, I saw the health CS, my namesake, CS Barasa, making a very ludicrous comment. And of course, many people logistically will predict that it was a bluff, saying that drugs have been somewhere and now they're going to be released, that despite the donor cutting from the US, we won't be affected. But clearly, if you look at the situation right now, de facto, you realize that there's a missing 1 billion to the health ministry per se to even distribute these drugs. This government is caught in a tightrope, and they just do not understand it. The US government has made it clear. One time I was here and I talked about the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency. This government really needs one of a kind. The US government has decided to suspend 1.3 billion Kenya shillings towards the Haiti mission. 1.3 billion Kenya shillings is a paltry amount. It's just about a third of the total estimate that Kenya is actually spending there. What actually drives us to go and spend 3 times what the US was spending in Haiti? Now, we all know, and I might want to interest our audience into how the UN works in terms of reimbursing these amounts to countries that actually spend their money in Haiti. And so there is what we call a United Nations instrument for unit requirement, that the instruments that you are providing for the mission must actually pass a certain threshold of performance before you actually succeed. How sure are we that where we sit as Kenyans, we can be comfortable, that we have a proficient system happening in Haiti that is actually going to deliver above that unit requirement so that we can get our reimbursement? And even if that happens, when and how is it going to come back? Is it going to come back after 1,000 people have died of HIV and AIDS or malaria or TB or these things? Where are our priorities, like Nick was saying? Where are our priorities as a country? We need to put these things to bed.
If you look at Parliament, they've increased, and I think, Barasa, you mentioned this earlier, they increased their budget, parliamentary budget, by about 7 billion shillings, from 42 billion last year to 49 billion shillings. Unilaterally, in Parliament, once they agree on something, it is their process. Yet we are seeing reduction in the health budget. Is this the same Parliament that you're sure will give Kenyans a good budget? And are we asking the right questions at this time, Onamuku?
In the Parliament, it is the same monkey, different forest. And you can see I can do a proper analysis from the first handshake. During 2013 presidential election, one was being called a drunkard, and the other one was called a conman or after sometimes the thieves was removed from the basket and a conman was put in. And we are seeing the same thing in 2025. A tribal lord has been removed and a conman and a thief are in the same basket. And the casualty are also, we have some other political orphan. Like in the previous one, the casualty was Mudavadi and Weta. And this time it's Kalonzo and the other one, they call him a tribal lord. So it is the same people, but they shift, change. And then when they are affected, they come to people to seek mercy. And once they get into the government, like what happened recently, they forget. So we don't see anything. What we need as a country is a total systemic change. We do away from all these leaders. If you try to bring in Matiang'i, he was in the same system. If you try to bring in Kalonzo, he has been there. They are the same people. They just revolve around the same, protecting their own interests above. So I don't think and I can also touch on SHA. Recently, they did a review of mean testing instrument, and I can tell you that it has shoots. Someone used to pay 300. Now I see the minimum is around 540, which shoot from 3,600 to almost 6,000. So there's nothing that a common mwananchi can feel good about it. And